Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Riverdale, as well as the latest episode of Happy. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include a time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I say about the season finale of Riverdale, you can skip to what I say about this week's episode of Happy. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is the season finale of Riverdale. A great season finale. A shit ton of stuff went down in this episode, so let's break everything down. Obviously, Tony goes to Penelope, and Penelope ends up drugging Tony and everything. I'm like, okay, I was like, so are you going to try? Because I thought okay, so what she's going to do is she's going to blackmail Edgar so that she can get the other baby, even though it seemed like she only cared about getting the boy. Because it's like, oh, I want you to be Jason. And it's like, well, in grand scheme of things, of course, it makes sense because we see how obsessive she is about the whole Jason situation. It's kind of interesting. It seems like it runs in their family because Penelope's just as obsessed with Jason as Cheryl is. So that in itself is interesting. But then she shows up. She's like, "Oh, I want organs. I'm a lump sum of them or something." I'm like, "Oh," I was like, "So you're trying to take advantages? Are you going to try and get into the organ trading business or something like that?" Lo and behold, it turns out no. She bought Betty. And then it's like she invited Jughead, Veronica, and Archie because Jughead's still in that situation of like, okay, who the hell? It can't be really Jason Blossom. I mean, he's dead, but the fact of the matter is his coffin is empty, so what's up with that? Lo and behold, we get revealed about everything. Turns out Sister Woodhouse is still alive. She's the only sister from the Sisters of Quiet Mercy that's still alive. The rest are dead. She's actually the one that taught Penelope all Penelope knows about poisons. It turns out that this whole thing was her plan. This has been a long ass plan even before now. Since last season that this has been orchestrated. That basically she helped set up everything with the Black Hood. Chick turned out to be the Gargo King. Did not see that coming. I was like, what? And when Jughead started bringing it down, it's like, oh yeah, right. Chick is literally the only person we never saw his body with this whole Black Hood situation. So of course. And so basically how I was like, oh, he's kind of like my apprentice. Like the fact is he will help me accomplish my mission. It's also why Penelope and Hal got so close because she knew who he was. I'm sure she got her jollies off anyway, but I'm sure it was more so like, oh, the fact is playing into his more darker proclivities and kind of basically making him into her weapon. She pointed in a direction, essentially he fired because their missions kind of align. She hates Riverdale because Riverdale just let her be sold as a little girl to the Blossoms, and she was kind of forced into this situation. We know that because of the Midnight Club, which she hates all of them because it's like they knew and they didn't do anything. When Jason died, oh, did any of them really reach out to me or whatever? It's like, yeah, they felt bad and sad, but it's like, oh, we're not really friends enough for us to reach out to you. And so she felt like, screw this town. And that's why she invited them because they're the children of the Midnight Clubbers. And so it turns into a situation of, yeah, exacting her revenge kind of on them by having the parents feel what she felt. And that's like losing their children. And it's like, Jesus. That this long-winded amount of revenge. And it's crazy. We all knew that Penelope was manipulative and everything. That she was kind of a bad person. But to think she's essentially the Gargoyle King. She's the real Gargoyle King, manipulating everything from behind. So that's crazy. So now everyone's put into one final quest, which ends with Archie fighting a bear again. Though it's a dude, but still, that was pretty rough. He was tossing Archie around like it was nothing, but Archie ended up kicking his ass. Hell yeah. I guess, it's kind of interesting to see that everything has kind of been leading up, that Archie's going through everything. It's all been leading up to that moment, And then you have Veronica and Betty drinking poison, and it's like, oh, Veronica makes a sacrifice. It's like, no, I'm gonna drink the final bit of poison. It's like, I love you, B. I'm gonna look out for you. And she's like, I love you too, V. And it's like, besties. Turns out, Penelope's an asshole, and it's like, oh yeah, all of them have been poisoned. Don't worry, it's a slow-acting poison. So as long as you get to the end of this whole situation, you can get the antidote. Jughead had to fight Chick, and it's kind of interesting. It's like, why did you decide to become the Gargo King? It's like, to be, who doesn't want to be king? And the fact is, blood work, sacrifices being made in your name. It's like, Jesus. I was like, okay, and it kind of makes sense, because even Howla said it's like their kindred spirit. So ended up kicking his ass. And then there's the situation with how Betty had the choice of shooting him. It's like, either you shoot me or I shoot you. But she chose not to kill him, because if she did, that would have just sent Betty down that path of, following in her father's footsteps, and that's not what she wanted, And so she kept him alive, but, Penelope put a bullet in his head anyway. It's like, Jesus. She is one cold customer. That's why I'm kind of surprised she didn't outright kill Clifford herself, but maybe it's just because of her situation of kind of being brought into that family. Maybe because she didn't really know that it was Clifford until it was all said and done, and maybe that's what kind of drove her even mad, because it's like, for one, she was forced into the situation, and the only good thing she got out of it is Jason. Yes, I do say Jason because she probably does not look at Cheryl like that, and that's the more messed up thing, because Cheryl knows, like, she would never mean as much to her mom as Jason did. Obviously we saw that in season 1. We've seen it continuously, the way she's treated Cheryl over the years. So it's super twisted and messed up. It shows you just how fucked up the Blossoms are, and I mean that family is super messed up. It's even kind of crazy. I mean, to be fair, Betty's family's just as crazy. I mean, to be fair, they are connected to the Blossoms and everything, so it kind of makes sense that their family would kind of be as twisted and everything. So that was really interesting. Though when it was all said and done, they got the cure and everything, but Penelope's still like, I'm gonna kill you all, because it's her revenge against Riverdale. So when it's all said and done on that point, though, I did like that, it's like, oh yeah, the Pretty Poisons and the Serpents are working together to, save the group. It's also interesting, too, because it kind of makes sense that full circle-wise that it would kind of come to this, because Archie, Veronica, Betty, and Jughead are kind of like the crew. They're like the mystery crew. Like, when stuff kind of goes down in Riverdale, they kind of inadvertently end up in the center of it. They have since the beginning. They're the ones that kind of help figure out this whole, Jason situation, Nick Clifford being behind it, and now, every situation, every season, they're literally in the middle of it. It's this group, so it kind of makes sense that it all comes full circle with her doing this to them. I mean, to be fair, it's kind of almost like everything was set in motion beforehand, because let's not forget their parents were involved in the Midnight Club. So it's actually interesting, because I don't know if that's something that was ever really answered, like who the original Gargoyle King was way back in the day. I mean, I guess, is it even worth asking? I mean, does that mean it was like actually Penelope the entire time? Because it's interesting, because Jughead had brought up that comparison. Obviously, I said like everything's kind of full circle in that regard. He's like, it's a whole, Riverdale is kind of stuck in this loop of madness. More madness begets more madness. It started with Jason's murder, and that led to the Black Hood, which begat the Gargoyle King. But it's like, let's not forget the Gargoyle King existed beforehand. So it's like this vicious cycle that just keeps repeating in Riverdale. That just, this serpent eating its own tail. But once again, it's like, who was the original Gargoyle King? Is that something that's going to potentially come up in the future, or what? I would assume it'd have to have... I mean, because the fact is, because Penelope was the one who introduced everyone to the game, so I'm wondering who it was, Although while this is happening, obviously Edgar's like, oh, we're ascending and everything, and it's like, I figured something was up with Alice. Like, the fact that she helped, Cheryl out later on, sure, but the fact is, you saw it when Alice, he was like, oh, the fact is, Betty ran off with, Tony, so, and I'm like, yeah, something that, like, the way Alice looked unsure, I'm like, wait, I was like, are you playing this the entire time? That's what I start getting that feeling more and more as the episode plays out. I'm like, she's playing along, isn't she? I was like, or is she just finally believing Betty and everything? It's like, no, she's played the long game. I'm like, that's crazy. Sadly, when they come back, everyone's gone. What ascending necessarily meant for them, I have no idea, because they bounce from town to town. I'm wondering how many followers from previous towns are there. Because the sad thing is, like, a lot of people were there. We know, like, Polly was there. We know Alice was there. We know Fang was there. So, and now Kevin's the only one left. So he was already in a vulnerable position. And for him to kind of be left like that is very devastating, because it almost feels like after everything I've been through, am I not worthy enough? I had to be the one to stay behind to kind of pass on the word about what happened. So it's going to be a process to probably like piece him back together and kind of unbrainwash him with everything. But to think Alice was playing the long game, I would have never guessed that. That's fascinating. And then the whole situation with the whole Jason situation, that's disgusting. It's like, oh, where's his body? Oh yeah, it's been in it's at the farm. Which then begs the question, like, who brought it to the farm? I guess they dug up Jason's body to kind of manipulate Cheryl. It's like, oh, the fact that you had a hole in your heart where you're just feeling, because that's why I was like, is Chick there pretending to be him? It's like, no, they really got Jason there, but the fact is she's so drugged up and everything, they probably just got someone. It's like, oh, we put Jason's body here, he's sitting down and everything, and we're having someone talk to you like here. I mean, because obviously Cheryl's already told him everything, so in her diluted state, much like Betty, it's like, oh, Betty thought she was seeing herself, when in actuality it was Polly dressed up like her. So that's where I'm assuming. The sad, twisted thing is, it's like, at the end, Cheryl's there being like, you're home, JJ, and it's like, literally brought his corpse back. I bet you sure as hell are keeping that from Tony, aren't you? Because I don't think Tony would appreciate that. But once again, it's that thing, that in a twisted way, like, both her and her mom are obsessed, because even the whole Chet situation is like, why'd you get Chet? She's like, his name's not Chet, it's Jason. It's like, even in the state, she's kind of a little diluted, like she's grown mad. I mean, to be fair, looking at the circumstances, kind of being brought into the Blossoms, like I said, her only salvation, the only good thing that came out of it was Jason, and to lose that, you know, that was kind of the only thing keeping her together. I think after that, she just snapped, you know, in the biggest way, you know, and so that's fascinating. So I'm definitely interested to see where that goes, because that's a new level of creepiness. We learned that you know, Alice has secretly been working with the FBI the entire time. I'm assuming it came to her sometime last season, because Polly probably introduced her to the farm, or maybe it was afterwards. So that was interesting. But then lo and behold, we find out the agent that's like, because FBI is going to be sticking around long enough till they can bring down Edgar and find everyone that went missing. And it's like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm your half-brother, Charles. It's like, excuse me? Oh yeah, right. I also forgot, I'm also your half-brother too. And I was like, oh right, I completely forgot. Right, Charles is FP's kid. I completely forgot about it. Which, once again, because I remember my conversation from last season being like, oh, that makes Jughead and Betty's relationship a little weird. Just a tad bit. I mean, to be fair, it's weird when you actually think about it too, because let's not forget Polly and Jason too. So I mean, it's half siblings in their case, whereas like they're full-on cousins. So, granted, they didn't know at the time, you know, at least with Betty and Jason. I mean, Polly and Jason, but Jughead and Betty, they didn't know they were half. Well, they're not half siblings because they're not related in any blood. It's just that weird thing of like, my dad and your mom got together. They had us separately with other people, but had another child in common, so it brings that. It's weird and complicated when you think about it. Like I said, it's not weird and complicated as the Jason and Polly thing, but still borderlining. It's just kind of interesting. Like I said, the Blossom and the Coopers have that whole crazy family situation going on, so there's that side of things. Penelope got away. Didn't expect that, so that's definitely going to be interesting. She kind of wants to burn Riverdale to the ground, so I'm sure we're going to see more of that going forward, so that's definitely going to be interesting. And like I also said, still never found out who the original Gargoyle King was, so I think that's something that's going to circle back. Also interesting, too, like, it turns out that the farm technically had nothing to do with everything going on with, like, Griffin and Gargoyles. I thought that was fascinating. I was like, I was so certain. I was like, they have to be tied in some way. It seems like no. It's just craziness hitting Riverdale kind of all at once. So that is definitely going to be interesting to see what that is. The way Edgar kind of made it seem too, he almost made it seem like there was something more to this whole organ trading thing that they were up to. What else it entails other than just like making money? Like maybe there's something else they'd use it for. Maybe we'll kind of learn about that potentially in the future. I don't know. There's also the situation at the end of like, okay, they have to make a promise. It's like, we're going to live a normal life for our senior year. We've already been through enough craziness. Let's just do this. And they make a promise and everything, and then we fast forward to spring break of the senior year. They're covered in blood. Jughead's not there, and it's like, oh, we have to burn our clothes. Betty's like, you have to do this, and he tosses Jughead's beanie in there. I'm like, okay, I can already see the red herring. It's making it seem like Jughead's dead. He's not. Most likely, Jughead got involved in something. Blood is splattered everywhere to help out, like, Archie, Betty, and Veronica get covered in blood, and maybe Jughead is in so much shock, maybe he wasn't, aware of what he was doing, or maybe he was, whatever the case may be. and they're trying to cover up evidence to kind of make him okay. Like, this is them looking out for him. That's what I'm assuming that situation is. Like, it seemed like it's pointing toward Jughead being dead, but I'm pretty sure it's probably what I'm saying it is. We'll have to wait ultimately and see whether or not that is the case, but it's just kind of like one thing after another. It's like they want to leave all this behind, but it's like it's Riverdale. Riverdale is kind of cursed in its own way, and it's just... like I said, madness creates more madness, and there's still plenty of madness running around. So, once again, what about, like, Penny, too? Because, like, Gladys didn't kill her, so she's still running amok, so there's always a possibility of her coming back. What about all the gargoyles? Did they leave with Penelope? I mean, the ones that didn't get, like, arrowed by, Cheryl and her archers. Now, that was... whew, deadly accuracy on that front. You also have Archie running the gym, him and Mad Dog, which I have to point this out because it didn't click in my head. I did not realize that Mad Dog was the same actor who played Wells, Jaha's son on the 100 back in season 1. Only reason why I know that is because one of my nieces likes the 100 and she's been watching it on Netflix, and obviously she's in season 1. Happened to see Wells, and I'm like, wait a minute. I was like, holy shit, that's Mad Dog. Totally didn't put that connection because it's been a long time since I've seen season 1, so I just thought that was just kind of interesting, a little tidbit, you know. But it's neat to see that Archie is going to be, you know, using the gym as more than just a gym and place to fight. It's like, oh no, I'm also going to use this as a place to, you know, build a community so that people, you know, who don't really have a place, it's his way of kind of repairing Riverdale, kind of not just the craziness that he wants it to kind of be like a glimmer of hope for people here in Riverdale, especially considering the fact that the gym is now 100% in his name. So there's that. There's also the whole him and Veronica thing. Where that necessarily goes going forward, I don't know. Because there's a whole complicated thing of like, oh, no matter what happens, I love you, and she loves him too, and they make out, but then it's like, maybe she had broke things off with Reggie. It's like one step forward and one step back with them. So what that really means going forward, we'll have to wait and see. I brought it up before. It never got answered this season, but I'm sure going forward it will be answered. Because I'm sure probably all these episodes were probably recorded after Luke Perry had passed away. So there's the whole situation of, and it's something I think they'll still probably go forward with it next season, is the fact is his dad, they'll probably make it so like, yeah, his dad ended up passing away, maybe a car accident or something. I think, like I said, it kind of makes sense if they tied his story off like that, just because of, like, once again, Archie's dad, Fred lost his dad when he was about Archie's age, so, you know, to kind of make the sad, kind of like, you know, kind of add this element to it, I think they would do the same thing to Archie. I think that's probably how they'll end Fred's story. That's how I look at it. And like I said, I figured his mom will probably be kicking it around, obviously, for obvious reasons. But it might even be a situation of her being like, I want to move you out of Riverdale. She already wanted to anyway, and now she probably has less reasons to let him or even want him to stay with everything that's going down in Riverdale. It's like, I got to get you away from this. But obviously he doesn't want to because the girl he loves as well as his friends are there, you know, so we'll see on that front. Can't also forget about the Hermione situation of, oh yeah, she got arrested because the information about, oh yeah, she tried to kill me ended up getting leaked, which I shouldn't be too surprised. Hiram was just already been waiting to pull that trigger at some point in time, and also he set up some other stuff to make it so that when the time comes, it's like, oh, Veronica, you don't even know what's heading to town, so dealing with one threat, yet another still looms. I mean, to be fair, it's like Hiram literally won't go away until he's put down. I don't know. Like, because even in this situation, Hiram still managed to find a way to always win in some shape or form. So now it's going to be interesting, because obviously Archie did promise that he was going to help Betty take down her dad, so what's he going to do now? Also, how's Betty going to feel, I mean not Betty, but Veronica, how's she going to feel knowing that Archie was going to pull the trigger, because she still doesn't know that about that, oh, he was that close. I'm sure that's going to be something Hiram's still going to point and put in Veronica's way, and it's probably going to complicate things, maybe. It's interesting, too, because her and her mom co-own both Pops and the Speakeasy, so it's definitely going to be interesting, you know, where things potentially go forward with all of that. Also, really quickly, I thought it was kind of interesting during like the whole scene with Veronica and Archie in the woods that they played a Billie Eilish song. I can't think of the song's name, but it's a music video where like she's wearing white and she's drinking out of the cup and like black ooze is coming out of her eyes and stuff like that. I was like, that's so interesting. I swear, like, wasn't it Riverdale that played another Billie Eilish song? I swear, I think I saw another one on something else CW related. I want to say it was like an episode or two of Legacies also played a song. It's like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I just feel like I was hearing Billie Eilish everywhere. I mean, which isn't a bad thing. She makes great music, but still, it's just kind of interesting. I just couldn't help but notice. I was like, I started hearing like the melody to the song kicking in. I'm like, is that what Billie Eilish totally turned out to be? I thought that was kind of interesting, but nevertheless, just a little side note I just wanted to add in there. Add in there, like words slur together heavily right there. The show is coming back for a 4th season, and I'm very curious to see where it's going to take us, because obviously we've already gotten a little bit of a look going forward, and it looks like things are just not going to be easy or good for our heroes, especially for a while. I was actually just looking it up because all the stuff about Fred, because I was just looking it up. Apparently, from what I've read just a little bit, I was reading online, that's going to be something they address right there at the beginning of season 4. So we might, whichever way they decide to handle it, we'll find out like right at the beginning of the season. So it's going to make, obviously, storyline wise already, senior year is already going to be pretty rough. Seems like it's going to get even rougher, and it's going to be interesting to see how everyone handles everything. It's like literally Veronica had to deal with Archie literally getting locked up at the end of season 2. Now she has to deal with her mom getting locked up at the end of season 3. Can't catch a break when it comes to her dad, I'm curious, will he spend the entire time in jail kind of orchestrating things from behind the scenes, or will he get free? Obviously Chet's getting locked up. Obviously Hal is dead. But I'm wondering, will we see more of Chet or will we not? Like, because, that's that sad thing, too, for Betty. It's like, for one, it's like, well, no matter how much of a monster he is, and I brought this up before, he's still her dad. There's still that connection of no matter what of a monster he is, that's still your dad, So, but then also, like, your mom's missing, and you find out, like, oh, your mom, amongst anyone, was kind of an FBI informant. You also got this new brother, well, half-brother you got to figure things out with. Same thing for Jughead. It's interesting, too, because it's like, oh, I didn't even think about it till now, but it's like, oh, yeah, like, FP's in law enforcement now, too, and so is Charles, so it's like, that's a whole crazy situation all on its own, so. Like I said, I'm very interested to see where all of this ends up taking us going into season 4. And now moving on to this week's episode of Happy. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, first and foremost, you have Nick and Happy going off to rescue Haley, but sadly, Smoothie's got the place rigged to explode. It's also interesting, too, kind of continuing, the fact is, Smoothie just being the weird, disgusting freak that he is, he had like, a whole bunch of tongues in like jars. Then there's the whole situation of like, there's that dude that's his head is in a rat cage or whatever, and it looks like they were just eating and clawing at his face. It's like Smoothie's all kinds of messed up. But sadly, when it's all said and done, it's like him and Happy get locked up. And it's sad too, because you see like, it's so interesting because obviously everything that Smoothie is doing is trying to break Haley down, and in turn he ended up breaking Happy and Nick down because they blame themselves, because Nick is like, the fact is he saw the pink bunny and it's like, it's been there in front of my eyes the entire time, like obviously Smoothie's been playing the long game, but I didn't realize it. How could I miss it? And Happy's like, I should have known something was up with Haley, but I was so caught up in my own stuff that I didn't really see that. Nick is on the verge of losing hope, because it's like, the fact is he thinks of himself as like a virus. The fact of the matter is I infect anyone that I'm near, and so it's like, how did I think that life was going to be any different for me the moment I came into their lives? And for him, he wanted to change, and I like what Happy was saying. I thought was kind of neat. Was like, Happy's like, you were doing everything you could to change, and I was doing everything I could not to change, And I think when Happy tried so hard not to change, he ended up heavily overcorrecting and everything. Same thing kind of for Nick, And so, sadly, we find ourselves in this situation. There's everything with Amanda, her eating a whole bunch of chocolate. I love that whole scene of her talking to Simon. It's like, oh, get over here and get in me. And then Simon's like, okay, I got a pen. I got to find me a pencil, because he's trying to write down the address. And I love the whole confrontation between BB and Amanda, because BB looked at it as like, oh, you're just some gold digging hussy here to steal from me. Like, the fact of the matter is, she's like, kind of like, I know your game, how I know it, because I worked it myself, like, kind of finding my way to the top, and I'm not letting you take that all away from me. Sunny Shine is mine, not yours. But obviously, that's not even what Amanda's after. To be fair, Amanda isn't like herself. She's kind of like still in a daze and high and everything, so. But then you meet Okus. He shows up to kind of ease tensions and stuff like that. I feel so bad for Simon. It's like, he's like, the baby's not mine. To be fair, I'll raise it and we'll look after it. But Okus literally has him put himself underneath the ambulance tire and gets his head squished. I was like, that sucks. And even Amanda's like, he was so nice. That's very interesting. You have Meredith meeting with Cap. We learn that person he was eating was his nephew. It's like, why the hell would you do that? I even love later on, he's like, I would rather the video of me eating my nephew coming out, rather than put that egg-tacular or whatever it is that Sonny is making, because it's god-awful. It's like, Jesus, that's super messed up. I even love him pushing these things about like the way Meredith is dressed and the fact is her hair and stuff like that, talking about she doesn't have the look of a cop, basically saying that everything she's doing is just her bluffing, trying to get Cap to confess and everything. I do love in the end, it's super messed up. I guess he's banging his secretary and then it comes out and they're like, here's him eating his nephew, and it's like, if I was him and under these circumstances, I'd kill myself. I'm like, Jesus. And then he's like, all right, how about we play it one more time just for anyone that's just tuning in and hasn't seen it. It's like, man, could you imagine if the news was that fucked up, dude? Come on. That was interesting. To be fair, she tried to give him an out to this whole situation, but he didn't take it. But with him out of the picture, the other people are like, well, Cap was the only one pushing for it. Now that he's out of the picture, now things aren't working out for Sonny. It's kind of interesting because we kind of get a little bit more insight to his thought, because it's like, I'm going to cause all this chaos, and then I'm going to save Easter with my special and stuff like that. That's where his mindset was with everything. So, but they're not backing him up. And now that kind of falls apart, which begs the question, what's Okus going to do now? Because the whole point was for him to be on TV and everything. Obviously, Sonny doesn't know the grand scheme, the grand plan of everything, because I'm sure he wouldn't be. He's too narcissistic to be like, whoa, I'm going to die. No, he'd be pining and whining for his life if he knew really what was going on. So, I mean, not unless he does know and he's okay with it. But I feel like, for him, it's like, this was my chance to really shine. I've been captivating kids for over a decade now. This is going to be my time to shine brighter than I've ever shined before. So there's that. There's also Meredith talking to that IA agent, and I love that whole situation of her being like, because she's like, oh yeah, where's your other half? And it's like, she's off somewhere else. It's like, it's alluding to the fact that her and her partner are actually partners. I didn't realize that. That was kind of interesting. It's just kind of like, she's going off, essentially kind of like, she's got a badge, and obviously that doesn't just mean that things are good between us, that basically she goes off of other badges or something like that. So I don't know whether that is 100% alluding to them being more than just partners, that they are partners, or what. Especially the way everything was going down between her and Meredith. Meredith is like, how about, I throw you a bone or something like that. And she's like, bone? What kind of bone? And Meredith is touching her hand. I'm like, wow. But Meredith is like, I know Sonny's got, you and a whole bunch of cops under his, thumb and everything. And she's like, that kind of bone. And it's like, beyond that, I am curious because, even Sax brings it up later on. Nick is like, what did you have to do? She's like, don't ask. And he's like, don't tell, right? Which I'm wondering, did she have to do with something else? I mean, to be fair, it seemed like she was kind of being like, it seemed like something might have happened. I'm curious, what did Meredith have to do to get her help? It's also sad, too, because Nick is being beat up by the cops and everything. Their main issue with him is because, obviously, I don't think they've ever really given a crap about all the stuff he's done before. It's just particular, obviously, at the beginning of the episode, he knocked out 2 cops, hurting them and stuff like that, so it's more payback in that regard. Well, there was a whole bunch of cops that showed up to beat him up after Smoothie's place blew up. Not unless he fought some people there, too, and that's it. Maybe not. Either way, that's a whole thing in itself. I do love the interesting thing of, lo and behold, Meredith and Nick. It's so interesting because Meredith is trying to be like, Nick, you won't believe all the stuff that he's like, come on, come back to reality and stuff like that. It's like, you really got the nerve to tell her to come back to reality when you already know things are really wild and crazy anyway, because you literally are responding to an imaginary friend. come on, dude. You know, so there's that. I love that they end up getting attacked by Lamore, because it's the one that's been following them around. It took a while for me, like, what is that following them around? I'm like, right, that thing is still inside the sewer, isn't it? I guess part of it ended up getting flushed. Or did it split up or what? Because remember, Nick ended up at Sunny Towers or whatever, and he was laying next to his dead body. They tried to, like, torture it or capture it, and it ended up breaking free. So whatever happened to the goo that was inside of Nick, I guess it kind of worked its way out of his system, a little bit he had eaten. I mean, it also went down the toilet, so it was just kind of interesting to me. I mean, maybe lo and behold, that's how it was able to find them, because it was tracking them through the gunk that was in the sewer. Either way, it proceeded to absorb him, and then Nick ended up blowing his brains out, and then he literally did kind of an Ace Ventura situation and came out of his ass. And he's like, hey, Mayor, look, found the asshole. Or it does have an asshole or something like that. What was also interesting, too, is that Happy went inside of Meredith's head and ended up pulling out. It didn't click in my head until just now, because I was like, what the hell is up with the red string? It's like, oh, because she's so damn obsessed with the red strings. It makes you wonder, is there a deeper meaning to that? The fact of the matter is that her mind is like that with trying to piece everything together, because even she, learning everything last episode, still doesn't understand everything, because it's like, it's still kind of hard to figure out and all that. So that's definitely interesting. But one of them's dead. Now we kind of cut to the whole Amanda situation, because Sonny ends up revealing, it's like, oh, it's not my baby that Amanda's pregnant with, it's one of the Lamore, which I'm not surprised. But then that begs the question, like, obviously one of them was still kind of alive and everything, so why do you need Amanda to give birth to another Lamore? Is it a situation of, because it needs to be a Lamore born of, like, a situation of, like, it being part human, does that do something to it? Because a part of me was also wondering, is like, are we going to find out that it's technically Blue's baby or something, that it's his DNA mixed in there, so now Ocus can have a younger like a very young, strong body? I'm like, is that what they're going for? But it's like, no, it seems like having a body, the age of a body doesn't seem like it really matters. I mean, it seems like he's doing just fine in Blue's, but it's like, well, what's the whole point of having another Lamore being born into this world? I mean, maybe it's his way of trying to find a way to mass produce them, because maybe there's no easy way. Maybe it's just kind of like the ones that are with him are the only ones that are left in existence, so maybe he has to kind of make it count or something. I don't know what he's planning to get out of all of that. We'll ultimately kind of have to wait and see in that regard. But on the other side of the episode, we have everything with Haley. Haley, it's like, the fact of the matter is, I understand why you and Mama lied, but the fact of the matter is, I'm done with being lied to, so that's why she's going with Smoothie. It seems like basically Smoothie ends up taking her back to his hometown. It's like, oh, here's my stepmother. Well, not my stepmother, but she's like the only mother I've ever known, Cheryl. And talks about his dad. Some guys at the restaurant or whatever are talking about, oh, here's this kid who ended up cutting off his nuts and stuff. His testicles, saying like, oh yeah, like just to say that he did it, and puts them in a jar or whatever. And I'm assuming, I could be wrong, but I'm assuming that's actually, Smoothie, which, you know, would make it understandable, his situation downstairs. But then stuff later on, it's like, oh yeah, there was a boy that was mutilated by some like freak accident later on. And he basically kind of alludes to the fact is that his dad had a terrible temper and stuff like that. He would drink and stuff like that. Even kind of making comparisons to Nick. But Haley is like, my dad might be kind of those things, but he'd never hurt me. Saying the fact is, if me and my, Cheryl hadn't gotten away from him, he would have killed us. Which, with everything kind of playing out the way it does in the episode, it does beg the question of, like, because it seemed like he sets everything up for Haley to find and piece everything together. The picture of him and his parents, all the bugs and stuff like that. It seems like it was all on purpose, because I guess when the ultimate time came and it's like, oh, here I am going to kill my dad, which twist is that's not actually his dad, which is interesting because she's so pissed about like everyone lying to her, and lo and behold, Smoothie is manipulating and lying to you, but she just doesn't realize it yet, because she thinks she found with her a kindred spirit. And, Smoothie, the fact is he never lies to her, that he looks after her, that he understands her, everything that she's going through. And so it's like, because like Ocus had told him that whole thing of like, she doesn't seem like she's become a friend of death. I guess the whole thing is like to kind of put her in this position, because even Smoothie was like, oh, the fact of the matter is I've broken everything that she kind of holds dear. She's kind of a blank slate now that I can basically write her story to be whatever I need it to be. And it seems like I, lo and behold, have found out what this whole point is, and that is for Haley to be the one that ends up killing Sonny Sean. Because if it is on TV, everyone's going to see, and it's going to break so many kids, spirits, and obviously Otis is going to feed off of that misery. Like, obviously, it's like someone at their peak, and just that devastation that kind of ripples out, especially it being Haley who did it too. So, but once again, it's like, how's that going to be affected now that, he's no longer getting his special? I mean, to be fair, Otis could still kind of manipulate the situation to get him what he needs. Or maybe Sonny Shine's going to find another means of doing it. Maybe Haley's going to be enough on her own just because she's so damaged. Like, her pulling the trigger is enough to kind of trigger what Otis needs anyway. I doubt it. Because, like, obviously there's the whole conversation that got set up before, like every assassination that's ever taken place, whether it be like Martin Luther King or JFK, or wasn't it in this one they referenced Ferdinand, the one that got shot that caused the beginning of World War I? Or am I referencing something? I might be referencing something else. I don't remember. Nevertheless, but like I was saying, I'm not sure whether or not anything that Smoothie said is true about his mom. Because, like, obviously, like, there's that whole thing of, like I said, the story of, like, oh, the boy who mutilated his nuts, and then, like, oh, the boy who got mutilated because of an accident. So I'm wondering, like, obviously, I'm thinking everything he said about his mom and dad and everything was complete and utter BS. Either that was his real mom, Cheryl isn't just, or maybe Cheryl is the woman that took him in, but isn't really his mom. And obviously that was a complete stranger he's killing at the end, but maybe his real dad died. Maybe something happened to him in the sense that an accident happened that he did that. Or, I'm wondering, it's a whole cutting his testicles off. Was that the same incident? Or were those two separate situations? He got mutilated first because of something else, or maybe he did it himself and then he proceeded to mutilate himself even further. I don't know. It's hard to say with Smoothie what's true and not, just especially the way he's kind of painted this picture for Haley of like who he is and everything that he's kind of gone through. Obviously trying to, obviously the whole point is for her to become friends with death, to make it so that it's something that becomes familiar to her, that it isn't something she turns away from. It's like, if after seeing what went down with Smoothie and his quote-unquote dad, that means he's able to push her into this direction without too much fuss, because like she's already become friends with death. So it's interesting too, because like when this all started and we got introduced to his mom and everything, and she doesn't seem like she's in, well, Cheryl, but still kind of his mom, wasn't in the best condition. I was like, isn't that kind of super messed up? Because let's not forget, like, Meredith's mom was kind of in a similar situation, yet he was there kind of threatening to kill her. To be fair, that was on Blue's orders, but still that was on him too, and he was kind of enjoying it and gloating about it to Meredith. So that's what makes me go like, okay, so if that ended up being the case of like, oh yeah, it's really Cheryl, it's like, it'd make, that whole situation even more effed up that he would do that. But it'd be even more effed up if, if the whole thing, like I said, was orchestrated, that's not even her, that he shows up there and she's like confused and she's old and she doesn't know who he really is, and he picks someone that he knew wouldn't be able to really communicate what's going on. So like I said, I think everything is a lie. I mean, to be fair, Smoothie's been kind of planning this out, so he's well orchestrated the entire situation. So like I said, we don't know what's truth and what's lie, but either way, we see the path that he's putting Haley on. So it makes you wonder, well, I guess to be fair, I was about to say, like, what does Smoothie get out of this whole Sunshine situation? I guess for him it's kind of revenge. It's like, I guess he also sees that, oh, I'm part of something bigger now. Like, Sonny's kind of like low level, and now I'm going to be a part of some grand design of what the ripple effects are going to be of, the ramifications for all of this. So plus, I guess it's also his way of seeking revenge against Amanda, or more specifically Nick, kind of because it's like, if, once again, it's kind of what I thought before. It's kind of like, obviously, if it's I end up doing this, I end up destroying your little girl forever. So it's kind of like a middle finger to Nick. It's like, oh, I can't hurt you that way, but by manipulating and hurting Haley, this way I hurt you because there's no repairing her beyond this. Hopefully Nick can get to her in time to save her, but we'll ultimately have to wait and see where that ends up taking us. I'm very excited to see what the next episode has in store for us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.